Okay. So today we'll cover bhakti, right? Which is the other topic in chapter 9. It's actually a topic throughout the Gita, bhakti, but it comes up in chapter 9. And I thought that, and bhakti, by the way, is, if you will see what bhakti means in Vedanta, it's quite misunderstood because bhakti has become like a, kirtan of Ishwar, which is not really how Vedanta intends it or how Shankaracharya intended it. But I thought before we go to bhakti, let's make sure that we have got our fundas clear about sadhana. Because bhakti is, it's all, now we're talking about sadhana, right? So I thought I might ask you chaps, what do you think? What do you think is sadhana in your impression? What does sadhana mean? No right or wrong answers. I just want to make sure we get the discussion started. Sanjay, you do a lot of sadhana. You and Mukta both do. So what is sadhana for you?
Actually, sadhana for me means it's a way of life, way you look at things, way you do your daily routines, way you, Ishwar Samarpan, everything, whatever you do. And if you are focused on that path, doing the right things the right way and not taking credit for everything you are doing and doing the best for the people, best for others, rather than bringing yourself to the forefront of the picture and doing concentrated efforts for yourself, not for yourself, but for others. I think that's the biggest sadhana you can do.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm going to take what you're saying and put it in a different language,
Different
just so
language,
that so that we can understand the Vedantic. But what you're saying is exactly right. Is exactly the case. But I'll just use some technical terms so that we can understand those. So Mukta, what about you? Anything to add?
I mean, how I would interpret is like, first of all, what you call that bhakti is also sadhana, meditation is also sadhana. Then listening to this any spiritual talks of any kind, not necessarily Vedanta or others also.
Yeah.
I think all that comes under sadhana.
Yep. Absolutely.
Listening and thinking about it and contemplating over it.
Yeah.
All that is sadhana.
Yes, very right.
Meditation is also sadhana. Bhakti is also sadhana. Then what Sanjay said, Karam Yoga, that is also part of sadhana.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's it.
Kiki, anything to add?
I think sadhana for me just means working through something, but working through it with the attitude of Ishwar, Arpan, and Prasad Buddhi.
The Karam Yoga. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
I think one aspect of sadhana, I think, is focus and a lot of introspection.
Yeah.
You focus on what you are doing, you think about it, how you are doing, the way you are doing, and then at the end of the day, you introspect a lot and see whether you could have improved on that and how you are progressing on the path, on the spiritual path. All these things, I think, they're part of sadhana.
Yep. No, totally right. 100%. And let's kind of put it all together, right? So what I would say is, in Vedanta, sadhana actually means a means, right? A way. Sadhan hota hai na Hindi mein? Sadhan hai karne ka. So sadhana means an approach or a means to do something. But what is it that you're doing? Like, what is the objective? That is called sadhya. So there's sadhya and sadhana. Sadhya is what you are trying to get to, your objective. Sadhana is how you get there. Okay? That's the way to think about it. And I would say that the most important thing, because sadhana, I think you have a good sense of what sadhana is. I'm going to take whatever you said and classify it into a few things, just to give it, it's comprehensive. But the most important thing in my view is to have clarity of sadhya. If you know what it is that you want, what is your objective, then sadhana becomes a lot easier. Right? Because the problem हमारे में क्या होती है, we don't know actually exactly साध्य क्या है. हम साधना पे ही चले जाते हैं. So लोगों ने कहा मेडिटेशन करनी चाहिए. Okay, मेडिटेशन करनी शुरू हो गई. Why? Right? What are you trying to achieve by this meditation? ये तो पता नहीं है. Some vague idea is there. और भक्ति करते हैं, भगवान की भक्ति वो अच्छी है, वो उससे कुछ पुण्य मिलेगा. So okay, भक्ति करी. So these kind of sadhanas, then what happens is they become random, they become sporadic. एक दिन करी फिर रह गई. There's no commitment, there is no force, there is no motivation behind these sadhanas. Right? But if you have your sadhya clear, then you will find your sadhana. Because you are committed to the sadhya. Right? So the sadhya is very important to clarify. And इसमें I will say another thing, which is ke, and this is my experience, and also, you know, what Vedant also says, that sadhya should be something which comes naturally to you. You should not force a sadhya on yourself. अब तुमने पढ़ा है बहुत कि मोक्ष सबसे ऊंची चीज है. Now, and Vedant बहुत अच्छी चीज है. So then people say, oh, मुझे तो I have to become vairagya. I have to, you know, achieve moksha. I have to get away from this life, material life. That's a fake sadhya. If you're forcing it upon yourself because this is something you should do, that sadhya is not your sadhya. That sadhya is just something that somehow, you know, you have a feeling of lack somewhere and you're saying, okay, let me try this out. Maybe this will work, right? Maybe I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I've got problems. Maybe this will solve my problem. That is not a sadhya for moksha. So the important thing about sadhya is not to have a determination about this is my sadhya. No. The important thing about the sadhya is to realize, to understand and identify what is my sadhya. So let's say that, you know, I'm going to give you an example. I was thinking about a good example, and recently I've been reading or seeing this a lot about Roger Federer. He came up with this documentary, The Final 12 Days. So my question to you is, do you think Roger Federer has a clear sadhya or had a clear sadhya when he was playing tennis? Right? He had a very clear sadhya. He wanted to be the best tennis player in the world and win multiple number one titles, you know, number one rankings, win multiple Grand Slams. He was focused. That was his life. And what was his sadhana? What do you think was Roger Federer's sadhana to achieve his sadhya of becoming the best tennis player? Any ideas? Any thoughts?
That was workout practice.
Yeah. Workout. Actually, I would say his entire life was his sadhana. What he ate was determined by people who said, this is what you need to eat to get your energy levels high. How many times you eat. He used to go to the gym 2 to 3 hours a day. He was just doing gym. Then he used to go and practice on court with his coach. So he had a fitness coach, he had an eating coach, nutrition coach. Then he had another coach for practicing tennis. And then he would say, okay, maybe I'm going to now improve my serve. So he would practice 2 hours on his serve. Then he'd practice on his backhand. Then he'll practice on his forehand, his lobs, the different things which are directly related to tennis. Then he even, I mean, if you listen to Novak and all these guys, they'll tell you that they do meditation also. They do exercises to control their impulses in their mind. Because when they get to these tough situations, right, in a match, you know, nerves can take over. You can get anxious. You can lose all your knowledge of tennis. Because suddenly, you know, life has thrown you in a spot where you forget about your knowledge. You don't want to do that. So you have to control your mind. So he does that. And you'll see how seasoned they become. you can see how much in control they are of what they are saying, how they are behaving, everything. That's all because of the sadhanas that they're doing. They're doing multiple sadhanas, multiple things during the course of the day, all of them with one sadhya, to support one sadhya to become the best tennis player. Roger Federer's sadhya is not to become the most professional sounding or the most calm person. No, his sadhya is to become the best tennis player. But all these other things he's doing to get there, which is all sadhana. And I don't think he has any moment in his day when he's not thinking tennis. I would say his life is a sadhana. Everything he does, how much he sleeps, how much he eats, is all focused towards his sadhya. Right? So,
yeah.
So there's no it's just you can replace winning a Wimbledon by moksha. Or whatever your sadhya is. You can replace by anything that your sadhya is. The approach is the same. Right? The bigger the goal, the more focused and concentrated and more calculated and more deliberate your sadhana. Now, when you can also take about, I was thinking you can, inter-college matches होते थे ना Delhi University में, वहाँ पे भी tennis खेलने के लिए लोग जाते थे. So, I remember my friends used to play tennis. And some of them used to practice a little before the inter-college tournament. And then, they wanted to win the tournament. They also did their sadhana, but their sadhana was nothing compared to what Roger Federer did, right? Because what was the sadhya of this college student who wanted to play tennis or participate? His sadhya was not tennis. His sadhya was to get out of college and get a good job. That was his sadhya. This tennis was along, theek hai, chal raha hai, There's nothing wrong in that sadhya. It's just you should know what your sadhya is. So it's important to know what is our sadhya. Is our sadhya to have a good life, balanced life, good relationships, healthy relationships, good money, comfortable life, dharmic life. If that is our sadhya, we should know that that is our sadhya. There's nothing wrong in that. That's a wonderful sadhya. Right? So if that is our sadhya, that we want to have a good life, a balanced life, and leave this world, live a good life, leave a good impression of this world, leave this world in a good way, leave a legacy behind, have children who, who have good values, all those, they're great things. Vedant will say, identify that as your sadhya. Understand that that is your sadhya. That is a wonderful sadhya. And then your life will become a sadhana towards that sadhya, because it already would be. If that is what you want out of your life, you'll do meditation also because you want to control yourself. You'll do some dhan and punya also because you want to, you want to have good atmosphere around you. You want to help people. You feel good helping people. All of that will be happening. Right? You'll do all those things. But moksha is then not your sadhya. Your sadhya is a good life. And there is nothing wrong in it. It will be wonderful if you can identify that. If you can identify that and know without confusion, ये ना हो कि मैं वो भी चाहता हूँ और मोक्ष भी चाहता हूँ और मैं ज्ञान भी चाहता हूँ और ये भी सब कुछ चाहता हूँ. वो confusion मत करो. When you look at yourself and identify your sadhya, things will become clear and you will know what your respective right sadhanas are. Okay, so that is why I just want to spend some time on it to make sure that we all understand the importance of sadhya. So we all have to introspect in our mind and see what is our sadhya. Honestly, because at the end of the day, we are Brahman. ऐसी तो कोई मतलब है ही नहीं, इसमें कोई बात नहीं है. So we will be fine. Whatever is our sadhya, we'll be fine. What happened? I remember because, I told you about this association I'm involved with. And I was at the Vedanta Society and all. And I was talking to somebody who is a student there. And she was telling me, she said, what happens with all this is when I go to the class, they tell me, तुमको दूसरों के लिए कुछ करना चाहिए. तुमको अपने से ऊंचा कोई गोल लेके उसको फॉलो करना चाहिए। तुम क्या कर रहे हो, क्या तुम कर रहे हो? दिल से नहीं कर रहे, तुमको करना चाहिए। तुमको डिजायर्स छोड़ने चाहिए, वैराग्य की तरफ जाओ। When you say things like this, what does it do to a person? What does it induce? It induces guilt. It takes you in the complete opposite direction to where Vedanta wants to take you. The journey of Vedanta is to tell you that there is nothing wrong with you, that you are fine. There may be something wrong with your body, there may be something wrong with your mind, and you're given these things. You can't help what you're given, right? You can be born with all these things. Don't think that there is something wrong with you, because you are perfect and you are God. That Vedanta's job is to take you from your place where you are full of doubts and full of issues and problems, and you're always trying to do something. I have to become better, I have to become better, I'm not good. You're full of guilt. It wants to take you from that place to a place where you have no guilt, where you realize that the way I am, I'm fine. That is the whole Vedanta journey. If you tell this person, नहीं तुमको ये भी करना चाहिए, तुम ये गलत कर रहे हो, material बारे में बता रहे हो, you're just going to induce more guilt. You're taking them in the reverse direction from Vedanta. And if that is happening to you, you must take pause. I don't think it's happening to any of you. I'm just saying that you must take pause and realize what's going on. Because the only way to go forward in Vedanta is to ground yourself and do what your desire is to do. Only then you get the experience. This, very, very famous, which I love, another shlok, just to repeat it one more time so that you can also remember it, is Parikshay Lokan Karam Chittan Brahmana Nirvedan Ayat. So only by examining Parikshay Lokat, the only by experiences in this world, and by examining those experiences for good or bad, will you move forward. By quelching your desires and forcing yourself into doing something which is not right, you're not going to move forward. If anything, you're going to move back. So that is sadhya. So we need to know what our sadhya is and make sure that our sadhya is, clarify the sadhya, and then the sadhanas will follow. Okay, so now let's talk about the sadhanas, right? Back to Roger Federer. Now we said Roger Federer does a lot of things. So tell me, Roger Federer's job is to become a better tennis player. I can understand that he wants to improve his backhand and his forehand and his lobs and all that and serve. Where does eating come in? Where does mind and all come in, right? I mean, this is not a perfect example, but one way to think about this is that there are certain things which an athlete has to do, whether it is Roger Federer playing tennis, or if it is Simone Bowles, Simone Bay, whatever. Kya naam hai Kiki? Simone Biles. Simone Biles. In athletics, right? Or, Sachin Tendulkar in cricket or whatever. They have specific skills that they need to learn. But there are certain general things which they all will have to do. They all have to do physical training. They all have to do mental training, right? Everybody will have to do that. That's sort of the ground on which you build. So in Vedanta, there are two kinds of sadhanas, the direct sadhana and the indirect sadhanas. So the direct sadhana for understanding Vedanta is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. That's the direct sadhana for understanding my own nature, self-inquiry. But you also need the indirect sadhanas. That's the Karam Yoga, Gyan Yoga. Gyan Yoga is kind of a little complicated. It's both. Karam Yoga, your Dhyan Yoga, all these things. Your Gita mein sara bhara pada hai. Right? Even keeping your body fit is a sadhana for Vedanta, because you need your body. So these are indirect indirect and direct sadhanas. You cannot do self-inquiry without direct sadhana. Just like there's no way you can play tennis if you don't know how to serve. But to achieve your full potential, to play tennis not just at a college level, but at the Wimbledon level, you need indirect sadhanas. And it's the same thing here. If you don't do your indirect sadhanas, if you don't do Karma Yoga and Gyan Yoga, and Dhyan Yoga and all that, it will be very hard to go any further with your direct sadhana of knowledge of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhasanam. You understand?
Yeah.
So now, what is bhakti? Well, actually, before I come to bhakti, if you see for a tennis player, even within these indirect sadhanas, the focus will be a lot on the body, also on the mind, but much more on the body. They'll go to the gym, build endurance. As Karma Yogis and as, Mumukshus, we don't need to do that. Our focus is much more on the mind. In Vedanta, it's called Viryam. Viryam means capability. The capability is about the mind. Why is that? Why is it that in tennis, you need to build the body, right? Because tennis is achieved through the body. The body is the most important medium for action, which is all tennis. The activity which is happening in Vedanta is knowledge. And the knowledge is achieved through the mind. So the mind is the most important medium for Vedanta. We are trying to learn stuff by listening, by understanding. What are we using? We're using our mind. If our mind is not sharp and not strong, we can't learn. Or we'll be we'll learn in a limited way. Right, Mukta, you remember Vipassana? The first 3 days of Vipassana were just mind, right? And then uske baad, once your mind is sharp enough, it's beginning to focus, then only you can go through those vibrations in your body. So imagine a person whose mind is wandering all over, who's got thousands of desires, who's trying to do this, do that, can't sit still, always anxious, always restless. How can that person sit down and truly think through and understand what Vedanta is saying about ourselves? So what is the word which Gita used? Gita used the word called prasanna, I think. There were two, three words. Ek hai prasanna. Prasanna means it's not just happiness. Prasanna means contentment, happiness, contentment, relaxation. There's a very nice word in English. Mere ko yaad nahi aa raha. But anyway, you'll get the sense of it. That's what prasanna means. You're फुर्सत में हो फुर्सत में हो आराम से हो खुश हो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है यू आर रेडी टू रिसीव राइट यू आर रेडी टू लिसन रेडी टू रिसीव not running around everywhere. That's the kind of mind we need to fully understand what Vedanta is saying. A receptive mind, a calm mind, a mind without bias, which listens to this and then suddenly says, no, that's wrong, because you got your own biases. Right? Then you just completely, that bias will come up and will cloud everything. So you need a mind which is completely relaxed. And Vedanta says to such a mind, when this pramana, when this means of knowledge is, when this mind is exposed to this pramana, knowledge is immediate, like that. No, nobody has that kind of a mind, but we can get The whole idea of the direct sadhana and indirect sadhana is to get closer and closer to that kind of mind. So you can also see why having a clear siddh, having your objective is very important. Sadhana and sadhya. Because, to many people, this might seem very interesting and a desirable thing. To many people, this will seem like, oh, no. I got too many things to do. Let me do those things before I can, sit down for 2 hours with a calm and relaxed mind. वो मैं करूंगा when I become 65 or 70 or something like that. अभी नहीं, which is fine. Okay, I'm trying to see whether I forget any of the things that I had in my mind that I want to say. And then bhakti. Now, Vedanta also has something to say about bhakti. So, bhakti is not a sadhana in itself. Bhakti is an attitude to any sadhana. So, for example, back to Roger Federer, would you say that Roger was committed to tennis? Will there ever be any doubt? I mean, Roger Federer himself will say, not only committed, I'm devoted to tennis. That's bhakti. So there is no, sadhana is not possible without bhakti. So bhakti is, even jnana requires bhakti. Bhakti is a commitment and a devotion to a cause, to your sadhya and to your sadhana. That is bhakti. Okay. So whatever sadhana is there, bhakti is an intrinsic part of it. The reason why it's got all confused with all this God and everything is because in the Vedas, in our religion, the sadhanas which are prescribed they all leverage God. They all leverage Ishwar. So now the Vedas, forget Vedanta for a minute. Think about Vedas as a whole. Everything. The Karam Kanda and the Gyan Kanda. Right? The Vedas is a life journey. The initial part of the Vedas are meant for people who have recognized their sadhya as dharma or artha or kama. Right? I want a son. I want prosperity. I want good relationships. The initial part of your Vedas is all about that. And the means to get that is also through Ishwar. The sadhanas which are prescribed are all leveraging Ishwar. जैसे ईश्वर की उपासना करो, ईश्वर से मांगो, इन देवता से बात करो, देवता का यज्ञ करो, right? Pray करो. All these are means to get to the sadhya. That sadhya happens to be a material sadhya. That's okay. So all kinds of sects came up and everything happened and this whole thing became confused. So bhakti became like a means in itself. Okay, this is a separate sadhana I'm doing. There is no sadhana called bhakti. If you're praying to God, right, that's a karam. It's an action because you're speaking something out. So that's part of the karam domain. It's not karam yoga. Karam yoga just becomes when you're praying to God with as a mumukshu, when you're praying to God without a material want. That's karam yoga. But praying to God is an action. Meditation, so there can be only two kinds of actions we can take as human beings. Either we take an action which is a karam, where we do something, right? I mean, it's all action only. Or we take an action which is a mental action, a manasik karam. That means we are thinking or conceptualizing, which is usually meditation or jnana. Both of them require bhakti. For them to become proper sadhanas, you require bhakti. Because you can't have a sadhana without bhakti. You can't have sadhana without commitment. So, if the sadhana says, work through God, then your bhakti will be towards God, towards the sadhana. Of course, your ultimate bhakti is to your goal. But we all get confused. So bhakti becomes, praying to God becomes like a thing in itself. So people can understand it's tangible. I'll pray to God. मेरे को उसमें मजा आता है. It's nice. For some time I feel good. It's just like I'll meditate, or I'll sing kirtan, or I'll do bhajans. For that period of time, we feel good. So we do that. And then we go back to do our rest of our life. Right? So we call that activity sadhana or bhakti. The rest of the life we think is nothing, not spiritual. It's our material life, which I'm working on my job. So that's not the way Vedanta looks at it. For Vedanta, everything is one big whole. Whether you're working on your job, or whether you're praying to God or doing meditation, it's all part of the one big package. And in all of that, Vedanta says, have bhakti. If you're doing your job, have bhakti in your job. You're doing meditation, have bhakti in meditation. If you are praying to God, have bhakti in God. Bhakti means devotion. An attitude of devotion is what is bhakti. So that makes you do whatever you're doing well. So I would say there are two things. One is the clarity of sadhya. That will inspire you to do your job well. And the second is an attitude of bhakti, which comes with the clarity of sadhya. That's how you, because everything you do in life will have consequences. It's not like because तुमने 2 घंटे pray करा, उसके consequences होंगे और तुम कहीं उसका फायदा होगा. The rest of your life you're leading has no consequences. It's not like that. If you want to gain punya, for example, then in your entire life you have to do things which will get you to punya. So that is the whole idea behind. That's what I want to say about bhakti. Now there's one more thing I want to tell you. Yeah, I come with my my agenda of topics to cover, and then we can have discussion after that. Okay? And then one more thing is, I want to ask you, what is the role of Ishwar? Because there's no bhakti without, this is how we think about bhakti, Ishwar, and you'll see almost every sadhana prescribed by the Vedas, well, by Vedanta in particular, leverages Ishwar. Just so you know, Veda Purva, that means Veda before Vedanta, the first Kanda, the Grand Pran, does not believe in Ishwar. For them, Ved itself is Ishwar. But that's an aside. Anyway, I don't want to. This is just to tell you, I found it very interesting when I learned about it. Any thoughts? Why bring in Ishwar? I mean, for you guys, is Ishwar so important? Maybe that's not a fair question to ask. See, the thing about Vedanta is that the Gyan Yoga part of Vedanta, which talks about how the world is formed, who forms the world. They say Ishwar is the cause of the world, right? All that, all of it is, everything about Vedanta is directed towards self-inquiry, about telling you you're Brahman. So in the beginning, how they engage the person is through this, because the person is all rooted to the world. They want to know, people want to know, how did this world come about? What is the meaning of this world? Why am I here? So they start with that and say, okay, how did the world come about? And how did the world come about is they say Ishwar. Then they move your attention from the world to Ishwar. Okay, let's find out more about this Ishwar. And finally, they move your attention from Ishwar to the essence of Ishwar, which is Brahman. And they say that is also you. It's a methodology. But it has a role. The reason why it's done like this, or one at least I can think of, or I can see, is because the journey of Vedanta is really about the journey of your self-concept. What do you think you are? What are you? Who are you? It's very difficult for a person who has no exposure to Vedanta, who has no exposure to anything other than what they see around them, to tell that person that you are the essence of the world. And you are not just this body and mind. You're telling them that your actions, so I mean, let's go one by one. So it's very difficult for this person to go there. If this person already has a concept of Ishwar, it's much easier for the person to say, okay, I understand that there is Ishwar and the Ishwar controls everything. It's the first step towards understanding that this body and mind is not in control of everything. See, we have to go from saying, I am the karta, I am the doer, I am responsible for everything, I am responsible for my results, for my action, I am responsible for what happens to me. That's how we are taught. Study hard, you'll do well. You'll do well, you'll marry well, you'll have a good house, you'll be happy. It's all me, you. You, this person has to do it. So much pressure on the me. From there, we are suddenly saying in Vedanta that no, it's not about, you're not even this little body which is doing all this work. You're doing all this, but that's mithya. You are something else. Or you're the substratum or the essence of this. So that is a very difficult leap to make. And you'll see that if you talk to Westerners, for example, who don't have a concept of Ishwar, it'll be very hard for them to understand this concept. They'll start thinking about this as superstition or some God knows what. But if a person has a concept of Ishwar, then you tell him or her, you think you're doing everything, but actually it's God who's doing it. A religious person, doesn't have to be an Indian religious person, can be a churchgoer, can be a Muslim, anything. They already have a concept of God. So you're leveraging that concept of God. You're saying, okay, you are not doing it, God is doing it. You think you're doing it, but imagine what is happening around you in this world. Can you control it? You can understand, and a person who has no concept of God will say, yes, I know, that's the way it is. The person who has a concept of God will say, okay, I understand that God is doing it. And then you gradually bring the person to say, the God is nothing different than you. So if I have to do Karam Yoga, and I have to say, in my Karam Yoga, I will just do my right thing. I don't care about results. If you have a concept, you can do it two ways. You can either say, mere Krishna Bhagwan hai, ya Ram hai, ya Ganesh ji hai, or whoever. That Ganesh or Ram is the one who's responsible for the results. वो मेरा ख्याल रखेंगे. I don't have to worry about the results. I trust God. I trust Ram or Krishna or whoever. He or she or Lakshmi, they or that God will take care of me. मुझे पता है. Then you can relax. You can do stuff without feeling completely responsible for its actions. You can stop thinking about, okay, yeah, bada bura hua, ye bahut acha hua. Then you can really start to work on prasad buddhi and arpan buddhi. Alternately, you can say, I understand what Ishwar is. Ishwar is not a murti. Ishwar is not a being. Ishwar is this collective. This collective is making things happen. That is also there. You can choose whichever, that Ishwar for you then becomes that collective. Whatever you think your Ishwar is, there will be something, that concept of Ishwar is there, which is different from you in the beginning, so that you can say, okay, it's not me, it's Ishwar. You'll see this pattern in Vedanta all the time. First, it will make a difference and clarify the difference. Then it will bring together and unite. First, it will say, you're not the body, you're not the mind, you're not the this, you're not the this. It'll clarify, because it wants you to clarify what is it that you are then if you're not the body and the mind. It wants you to clarify the concept of Brahman. Then it can bring back and say, okay, everything is Brahman. It's all one. It's the same approach everywhere. At least that's what I found. Every sadhana, everywhere, it's the same approach. So if we are only focused on the first part and say, okay, मैंने कहा ये ईश्वर को मैंने ईश्वर करने वाला है, I'm devoted to Ishwar, and you just stay there, then you only think, okay, bhakti is only मैंने ईश्वर की devotion करी. This is all I do. This is bhakti. Because that's all you're thinking. But if you think about the whole process, if you think about the whole thing, then bhakti covers the whole thing. Anyway, I just want to stop. I don't know how much of this, the final part, is I was able to convey properly, but whatever.
Can you just speak a little more to the final part that you were saying, that if you think of the whole thing, then bhakti covers the whole thing? It just means your attitude towards the system.
Yeah, your attitude towards whatever it is you're doing. If you think that everything that I'm doing is important, everything that I'm doing has a consequence, everything I'm doing is leading to my sadhya, whatever that is, then that is bhakti. People who say, for example, हम सोचते हैं भक्ति, उनको लगता है the bhakti part is the bhakti means where am I going to give my devotion? I'm going to give my devotion to this God for these 2 hours. That is bhakti. Or I'm going to give my devotion to my God who does everything for me. Even my work is being dictated by God. That is also bhakti, right? And so that is the next step. There's no moment in my life where God is not dictating. That is also bhakti. But you can say, my commitment is to my knowledge, to myself, right? Me as Brahman. That is also bhakti. So it depends on you what your sadhya is, where your emphasis is, where your priority is. Whatever is your priority gets your bhakti, gets your devotion.
So bhakti is generically
Devotion, an attitude of devotion.
of aligning everything in your life with dedication towards your objective.
You could say that it is yes, absolutely. Or you could, just to keep it simpler, you could just say it's an attitude of devotion to whatever is the most important to you. An attitude of devotion is bhakti. It's like Shraddha. Shraddha is a little bit more, I mean, they're basically the same.
And the difference between, how we think of bhakti and shraddha in spiritual terms versus anything else we might do in life is just that the objective in spiritual terms of self-knowledge.
Yeah, because only we make a distinction between our spiritual life and our material life. For Vedanta, there is no such distinction. Everything that we're doing is our spiritual life, or whatever you want to call it. That's just a name. Every action that we do has a consequence, and every action that we do takes us towards our sadhya, whether we are aware of the sadhya or not. What Vedanta is basically saying is identify what your sadhya is, right, at this moment, and focus your energies in such a way that whatever you're doing, you can make it better and sharpen it towards reaching your sadhana. That's the first thing of Vedanta. Because only by doing that will you take a step towards mumukshutva. Only when you have, experienced what you want to experience so badly right now, can you take the next step towards understanding, okay, what did I get from that experience? And what did I not get from that experience? And such experiences one by one over lifetimes, and such analysis of those experiences over lifetimes one by one is what leads to Vairagya. Vairagya is not a force of will. That's what Vedanta says.
So that means from time to time, our sadhya will keep changing.
Yes, it will keep changing. It better keep changing. Very good.
Or is there a roadmap for our final aim is moksha?
Right. I mean, that's the roadmap. That's what Vedanta will. If you want to follow Vedanta's roadmap, you can follow it. The problem with these roadmaps is then you will start figuring out, okay, where am I on the roadmap? Am I here? I should be a little further along. What can I do to go further along? You'll start playing games with yourself. But there is a roadmap.
There is a roadmap.
Yes. I mean, Vedanta will tell you, there are all these books and all, which will give you the roadmap. They talk about that, even that basic thing, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. That's also a sort of a roadmap.
Roadmap.
Right. You can think about that roadmap happening in the course of one life or over lifetimes. But it's a sort of a roadmap. What Vedanta says cannot happen is that you directly jump to sannyas. That can't happen. Because if you do that, then you'll just waste your time and you'll come back to grihastha at some stage. Tabi, if you see, even when they teach you all these, like Swamiji's all teach in ashrams and all that, not everybody is given sannyasa. Only a percentage of people who have gone through the courses and all are given sannyas, because, Swamiji will tell you, okay, maybe you're not right now ready for it. Go back. Right? Now, if you insist, he'll give you, but you'll just be miserable. That kind of thing, right? I mean, what I find a major problem or major issue is we have this concept of what is good in our head, which has been created and instilled in our head by our society from our childhood. And it messes with our brain. It stops us from being able to live as we are, who we are in the moment. That concept could be, depending, for some people it could be you have to study hard and get a great job, or it could be you have to learn Vedanta and become a jnani. Either of them it's the same thing. It's just pushing you away from who you are. So Vedanta is a process of diseducation before becoming a process of education.
So you also said earlier about, what is the role of Ishwar, right? You said a little bit. And so is it fair to say, or this has at least been my experience, that the role of Ishwar comes more and more into prominence for me the more I'm trying to, when you're located in yourself as a jiva, you say, okay, I am this person, I am trying to work through stuff, I'm trying to move somewhere. And I'm trying to, but when you feel more, there are circumstances you feel situated as a jiva more strongly, then having a relationship with Ishvara is helpful. Then having a relationship with Ishvara, but maybe, I don't know, this is the question that I had kind of asked, in that session also to Swami Sarpriyananda, is if I think of Ishvar as the whole in the system, Nirgun, then that attitude of love and devotion, where does that come from? Because then every good thing and every evil thing, everything horrible is also Ishwar. Ishwar is not just good. Ishwar is also evil, is also Ishwar. So how do you have, as a jiva, what kind of relationship do you have with that sort of Ishwar? It seems that the relationship with Ishwar is helpful as a jiva if you think of Ishwar only as a good, wise friend. So do you have any, there is some confusion in my mind around that, like, is how to think of Ishwar, do I need to think of Ishwar? But I find that it does help me sometimes when I'm trying to work through stuff to think of Ishwar. And sometimes even to say, oh, I'm confused. Okay, I will just lay this at Ishwar, let him sort out, like, I don't care, like that kind of attitude.
No, that's fine. I think that's exactly what you do. You don't have to think of Ishwar as everything around in the world. You don't have to go there. You think of Ishwar the way you want to think of Ishwar. That's what I'm saying. Don't let Vedanta become a point of confusion rather than a point of clarity. So start with,
yeah,
right? So if you think your sadhya and your sadhana right now requires a kind and gracious Ishwar, a wise Ishwar, who can be your friend or your guide, who can hold your hand through difficult times, then you just do that.
But it is not ultimately satisfying, right?
So then you have to figure out what your sadhya is.
Right, the sadhya is very much self-knowledge. There is clarity around that. But I'm saying with that sadhya being self-knowledge, then it is not
Then what
completely
about
satisfying to think
feeling?
of
Yeah, but
Ishwar just,
you're not your sadhya is not satisfying yourself then, right? Your sadhya is self-knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
Then why do you want the knowledge to correspond to your idea of what satisfaction is? Nobody promised satisfaction through knowledge. So you're looking for knowledge, right? So that's what I'm saying. You have to figure out for yourself what it is that you want.
You sometimes when you present these things, it's not so black and white. And it's not like, oh, this is 100% clear and everything is mingled in life. There isn't like this mind that is 100% clear and can move, because then you're never going to get there. You have to move through the muddle a little bit, right? I mean, isn't that just a
Are you
fact of
asking me or you're telling me?
both, I guess?
Because I don't agree with you. I think it is clear. And it needs to be clear.
No, what I'm saying is that final sadhya is clear. Self-knowledge sadhya is clear.
No, it's not clear. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You think it is clear, but it is not clear. I'm not telling you what the self sadhya should be. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying,
I know that, yeah.
But you ask yourself, if what your sadhya was self-knowledge or knowledge, any knowledge, self-knowledge, this knowledge, that knowledge. If knowledge is what you're after, then why this impulse that, oh, Ishwar has to be good only? Knowledge is telling you that Ishwar is everything. You can, right?
But that is the reason the question is coming up. That is the reason it is not satisfying to think of Ishvara as good only.
No, but I would say if you go by the mythology, the stories about Ishwar also, or Devas, there are all kinds of, I mean, the good also, but the good trying to destroy the evil, there sometimes the Ishvara becomes the evil also, and
Yes, but yeah, I think that, yeah, anyway, I have to work through some stuff.
what is evil and what is good is also, I think, a perspective probably.
I think that it would have been nice if I could just think of Ishwar as an anthropomorphic Ishwar sometimes in some stages of my life when life is rough. But that is not,
But
that
that's
doesn't
okay,
work
Kiki.
for me.
Like, see, so that's what I'm saying. It's when life is rough, you need some support.
Yeah, so
And you know that your mind is seeking that support through an Ishwar that you've created.
yes,
That's
exactly.
totally fine. What's
Yeah,
wrong with it?
yeah,
Go
yeah.
for it, right? I'm saying you don't. We all need support in one form and another, and we all create our ways of support. Mukta might lean on Anilji and say he's my support, knowing fully well that he's also not like the end all of all wisdom. But for that moment, she needs that support, and he gives it to her, and that's it. You move on.
Yeah.
Right? So that Ishwar is not the Ishwar that I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
yes,
that's all.
yes. But it is also, I think that for me, I also need to think that that Ishwar is still an aspect of the
Yeah, for
system.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if we look at it like this? See, when we are seeking support in our tough times, it is our body, mind, and the whole complex that is seeking support.
Yes.
So then it's not just the inner me that is seeking support, it's the whole body, jiva, which is seeking support. So then we are taking support from the Ishwar, which is Sagun Brahman,
Yes.
not the Nirgun. So then you can, then you can think of Ishwar as Sagun Brahman, and then
Yeah.
you take support from Sagun Brahman.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
that's a way of
the
looking at
Sagun
it.
Brahman also has the good and the bad, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the Sagun Brahman, anyway.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I mean,
It's
that
okay.
was
No,
Sagun
it's
Brahman means
okay.
Ishwar.
But I'll tell you one thing. Even Gita recognized this problem that people will struggle with a definition of Ishwar, which is Vishwarupa.
Hmm.
Right? So Gita, when it introduced Ishwar, it introduced it in two separate chapters. In the first chapter, it introduced Ishwar as all the good things. So it said, amongst the Chandas, I am Gayatri. Amongst the sages, I am Thambri or whatever. Amongst the flowers, I am the lotus flower. Right? Amongst this, so it has like it gave 150, 60 examples or something like that. And they said, amongst this, I am this. Amongst this, I am this. So they took the best, Purush Sabse Uttam, and said, I am this. That was the first introduction to Ishwar. Then in the next chapter, then Krishna Bhagavan said, because Arjun said, okay, I want to see your actual roop,
Yeah.
Vishwaroop.
Vishwar.
Then in that roop, he showed God as horrible. He showed God killing everybody. All people, they are like with उसने describe करा है कि big hands and big teeth and big nails, and everybody is entering. He's eating. Duryodhan is going into his mouth. He's eating them. Bhisham is going into his mouth. He's like they showed the Vishwarup everywhere around is this. And Arjun said, I can't deal with this as Ishwar. God, please get me back. I want to come back to the Jiva, and I want you in your roop that I'm used to, in that nice, good you roop. So that's how Gita deals with it. That is why Gita has two chapters when it talks about the roop of Ishwar. First the good one, then the bad one, and then it brings it back also. Okay, Arjun says, Bhagavan says, okay, no problem, I'll come back. And then Arjun feels a sigh of relief to see God in his real form, right? So that's it. That's how it is. Now you could also say that Arjun also his sadhya was self-knowledge, right? But was it? It was in a way, but it was not a full commitment to self-knowledge. It was not, he went back after that, he forgot about everything. Gita was repeated at the end of Arjun's life again. So, okay, so Krishna said, okay, fine, you're ready to learn Gita, but you're not to talk, but you're not fully committed yet. That's okay. So there's no harm in saying, Kiki, I have self-knowledge as my objective, but that's not my total and final goal at this moment.
But that's not the case.
Okay,
So,
I mean that
yeah.
I'm telling you that there is, like, for all of us, it's the situation. Even for me, even for Sanjay and Mukta, I would say the same thing. You look at your life, look at not what you're thinking, but what you're doing. Look at your life and see, is that the life of a person who has the primary goal being self-knowledge? You look at the life of Swami Paramarthananda or Swami Dayanand or Carol for that moment, or and look at our own lives.
You're saying the fact that we are not sannyasis?
No, not just that we are not sannyasis. What drives us? What makes us anxious? What makes us not anxious? What are we thinking about day to day? I'm saying the danger. I'm talking about myself now, not you. Okay, you can decide whether that falls in your category. The danger is to fool ourselves. I don't want to fool myself that this is my number one priority, because it will hold me back. It'll hold me back from tackling my issues today, leading my life properly today, and going on my path. It'll hold me back from my happiness, because I have superimposed in my mind what I ought to be versus understanding and realizing what I really am right now. Vedanta can become a screen. It can become a problem if we start letting, if we get enamored by what Vedanta is saying. It's called something in the Shastra. It's called Vedanta Vasana or something like that. We fall so in love with Vedanta that our focus becomes Vedanta, not us. The whole idea of Vedanta is the focus is you. Understand you as you are right now. Don't make Vedanta and the knowledge of Vedanta your focus. That's very, very important, I think.
But isn't it a two-step procedure? First understand Vedanta and then understand yourself.
Yes.
So also,
I mean,
are they separate things, like understanding Vedanta and understanding yourself?
well, I mean, what do you mean? How they're separate or not? Tell me why. Why you think understanding you and understanding me and understanding Sanjay, understanding Mukta, we are all understanding Vedanta, and understanding myself is exactly the same. There's no difference between Sanjay and me and Mukta and you and Kiki.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
No,
right?
I think
No.
no. What Nidhi is saying, or sorry, Sanjay is saying, what is Vedanta? What are we trying to? We have given it a name, Vedanta, but in Vedanta, what are we trying to do? We are trying to know who am I,
Right.
and trying to know who am I. That process or procedure or that knowledge is given the name Vedanta.
Vedanta.
Absolutely.
Right.
Vedanta is a process.
Yeah.
So to say trying to understand Vedanta doesn't actually mean anything.
Yes.
It just means you're trying to understand the process of Vedanta. You have to apply the process of Vedanta on yourself.
On yourself, yeah.
Exactly.
It's basically self-inquiry and how to do your self-inquiry.
Exactly. That's all. We could have
Right.
called it anything else.
But trying to understand Vedanta is the same thing as saying trying to understand yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather say try to understand myself, because by trying to say understanding Vedanta can be confusing. Right? It could mean that I am trying to understand Vedanta as a philosophy.
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm trying to understand Vedanta, what it is saying. And then I'll say, okay, because Vedanta says this, that's why I must be that. That's not self-inquiry. If you just follow what Vedanta is saying, and then say, oh, Vedanta said this, therefore ye theek hai, main bhi wahi hu, that is dangerous, because that's not self-inquiry. Self-inquiry means understanding yourself starting from where you are right now.
Yeah.
Right? That's why everybody's journey is different. Right? Because where you are is very important also. Whatever is in your mind right now, whatever are our vicissitudes of our mind, our particular issues of our mind, everybody has them. Knowing them and understanding them are very important.
Absolutely.
Because that's the starting point.
Yeah.
Right? And that is the sadhana also.
Yeah. In fact, therapy for me, I think therapy is a sadhana. But just because the immediate goal of therapy is an understanding of your psyche, it doesn't mean that it may not be in the final service of self-knowledge to make more room in your head so that it's available. It doesn't,
I
the
understand.
smaller sadhyas don't mean that the larger sadhya is not in
I
place.
agree. And what Vedanta will tell you, by the way, on that is that the final goal, and Swami Sarvapriyananda says that, the final goal is happiness. Okay? So whether it is through self-knowledge or whatever, happiness is the goal. It's not, why even do we want self-knowledge? Because we want happiness. There's no other reason. So anyway, I mean, we all have to work through our things, and
Yeah.
but that's what I wanted to say, which is at the end of the day, it's, we have to come face to face with ourselves. And that's how we start.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Anything else?
Okay, fine.
So Sadhana,
okay, one small question. At this time, what will be the people of Palestine and Ukraine thinking about Ishwar?
Absolutely. I mean, God knows. They may be very unhappy with Ishwar.
Most of the people will be unhappy.
Yeah. And they will see Ishwar as a horrible person, right?
Yeah.
The way Gita described it in the second part. Most people would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What they are going through.
It's just really, I mean, it's very, very difficult, for us to reconcile all these different things and reconcile it with Vedanta and our knowledge. But that is the purpose.
Somehow I really like today's session with the way the outlook or the perspective with which you explained the sadhya and sadhana and Ishwar. I really liked it.
Good. I'm glad. That's how I also, I like it that way too. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, it really, somehow it connected in the sense, I mean, somehow I liked it very much.
It's good. I'm glad.
Yeah, I think that goes with, last 5-6 lectures of yours have been very, very informative, very, very mind-opening and even mind-boggling to know all these facts and some clarity to some extent and quite a lot of confusion to the other aspect. So many things have got to be clarified before we move forward. Yeah. Many yes.
But really, Vedanta is, I mean, what I find now is it is very, very simple. It's like a very, at the end of the reason why it becomes so, I think it is so complicated is because we start from a very complicated place. Our mind is very complicated.
Our mind is very complicated.
Yeah. So we have, we can't, it takes, Vedanta starts from a very complicated mind, a very complicated jiva.
On the surface, it looks simple, but if you start going a bit deeper, there are so many things which are interconnected and mixed up, and you really have to have a very clear idea of each and everything to simplify things. Otherwise,
yes, there are many little knots that you have to open up, resolve.
Open up, and that you yourself can do
have
it.
to do it. Absolutely. Because
you yourself to open up.
Nobody knows those knots, only you do.
Yeah.
That's why when you said it's simple, the thought that came to me, simple to kaise nahi hai.
No. I was saying that the message of Vedanta is very simple.
Message is simple. Yeah.
The message is simple. The process is not simple. I'm not saying that. The message is simple because it is like there is what can be, you can't resolve that further. It's like saying the essence of everything is one. Right? You can't, how can you make it any simpler? If it was saying the essences are two, like for example, in Sankhya, it says that there are two essences. One is the Purusha and the other is, Prakriti. Right? And the two come together, and that's how the world is created. So, okay, there is still some opportunity to resolve it and simplify it. Vedanta is saying there's only one. उससे क्या simple कर सकते हो? And it says, it's not even that it is one. There is no time, no space, nothing. All that is that, that's that. It's like almost like a cop-out. So simple. Huh?
That itself makes it complicated.
No. It makes it complicated because we are used to thinking only in terms of things.
Yeah.
That's why it makes it complicated. Once we change our own perspective into how we see things, which takes time, then it is not complicated at all. Okay.
Okay, Dheeraj, thank you. Had a nice session.
Thank you. It's fun, because of these sessions, I think about, okay, what am I going to say next time also? I'm too lazy to write down, but I try to clarify the points in my head, and then I try to remember that I'm saying all the things that I wanted to say. But even if I say like 3 or 4 out of 5, that's fine too, I think.
That's fine.
Yeah. Chalo. See you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.